From Cali to Tally, it's time to wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source, and this is Wake Up War Chant. Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hudjavandi and Corey Clark.
What up, everybody? Let's get to work. Aslan and Corey are here to Wake Up War Chant. Follow us on the Twitter machine. All one word, Wake Up War Chant. Follow Corey Clark, Corey with an E _Clark. You can follow myself, Aslan Hodges. Still feels weird coming out of my mouth. We were going to take the day off, but Corey had this great idea of like, hey, Aslan, I don't know. We got some good momentum building up right now. Let's maybe just split up Renegade Express. Do half today, half on Thursday. Let's just keep this thing rolling. And I was like, you know what, Corey, that sounds like a great idea. So here we are. How are you?
I feel like that's a little bit of revisionist history there. I don't quite remember the conversation going like that, but I'm great, buddy. I am great, ready to entertain the masses yet again.
Yeah. Well,
this almost feels like a bonus episode.
It does kind of. It does because I mean, hey, folks, there's still, as of the recording of this, status quo on the coaching staff. And there's not a basketball game going on. By the way, Corey, 2 people commented on the tribal council telling me to slow my roll and to listen to you and that they do care about all athletics at Florida State University. So to not gloss over the basketball program. So
there you go. Again, we're not going to be basketball heavy, just like War Chant isn't basketball heavy. Like it's basketball season though, and Florida State does have a competitive team. So, we got to talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it more in March, obviously, when the games get really, really important.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we'll do a show today, obviously. We'll do one tomorrow. We'll wrap up Renegade Express. We'll take Friday off. I'll be down to South Florida, Corey. I'm going to a wedding with the girlfriend. First out-of-town trip together. A little bit nervous.
A friend of hers or a friend of yours?
Friend of hers.
Ooh, so you're meeting all the friends.
I've met a good amount of them. The one that are getting married actually live in Tallahassee, but they're from, I think the bride is from South Florida, so they're getting married down there. So I've met them. I know them. So.
Okay. But is there going to be a big wedding? Like you're going to have to meet at least some people you haven't met before, and you're going to be introduced as the boyfriend.
Yeah. We're supposed to go out to brunch on Saturday with her father. So.
Oh.
Yeah. So do I let him pay for it or do I pay for it? Like the brunch.
No, man, the play is to offer.
Yeah.
And if he says no, because some dads are like that. Some dads are going to be like, no, I'll pay for my daughter. Thank you very much. And I'm certainly not going to have her boyfriend pay for my meal. Some dads will be like that, right. But I think just the fact that you offer will be good enough.
Okay. All right.
It'll make you look like a gentleman. You offer to pay. Now don't make it weird. Don't be like, no, I got it. And he goes, no, I got it. And then you go, no, I got it. And then it becomes like a showdown. You don't want that. But yeah, just offer to pay once, you don't even have to be full hearted in it. Just try to offer to pay and then hopefully he doesn't take you up on it.
All right. Okay. I like it. It's a good game plan. I like it. I trust your judgment on things here.
I can't wait to hear about it.
What's that?
I can't wait to hear about the wedding.
Yeah. We'll have story time waiting for everybody on Monday. Hopefully good stories.
Yeah, sure.
Couple things before we dive into the mailbag here. First off, again, follow us on the Twitter machine. And a shout out to a Mellow Knoll. Like yesterday, I talked about Twitter followers and how come the numbers fluctuate between you, me, and Ira, mainly you and Ira. But that wasn't me panhandling for followers. I was just wondering that there's a million Florida State fans. I mean, literally like a million Florida State fans in this country. And like there's 60,000, you have 60,000 followers. If you like Florida State, why are you not following Corey Clark or Ira Schofel? But a Mellow Knoll, I guess this guy, he's got some juice on the boards. I guess he knows some Cruton stuff every now and then. But he put my name out there, and I got like 30 people join Team Salon over the evening, man. So,
they got on the A train?
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, that's good, man. You get 30 a day, you're going to be in good shape. You'll be at 5,000 in no time.
Yeah, man. One foot in front of the other. All right. Also, I saw this on Twitter. Speaking of cruiting and Twitter, a young man by the name of R.J. Proctor tweeted out, "Big thank you to Coach Fry, FSU, for coming out to see me today." So, I mean, heck, if Greg Fry's out on the trail, this young man's he's an offensive lineman that's at the University of Virginia, so he's a grad transfer guy.
Oh, yeah, I think we've talked about him. I know that name.
Yeah, just rung a bell now.
Yeah, so that would lead you to believe if the Clements thing, I mean, I still think that's happening, but it leads you to believe that they might have two. They might have, a guard, interior offensive line, and a tackles coach or something like that.
Yeah, that's
which
crazy.
is fine, right? I think the more I don't think that's the end of the world. I think it'd be a good idea to get a couple. It was such a position of need, quite obviously, that I don't think you can have too many chefs in the kitchen. I think if you could have 5 offensive line coaches, one for every kid on the team, like each offensive lineman gets his own personal coach, whatever you have to do to get that thing back up to speed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
so I wouldn't. That's not a bad. I don't, because again, we've talked about it before, but Greg Fry was a co-offensive line coach at Michigan too.
Correct. Yeah.
So it happens. It's happened at other places.
Yeah. Or he's just a consummate professional and he's going to work every single day until he's no longer working. But that seems less.
You would hope plausible. That's not the case because if they know he's coming, and by all accounts the guy's coming, you wouldn't just have Greg Fry. You'd want him to go get another job.
Yeah, for sure.
You wouldn't want him to just hang on for a couple of weeks, recruit for you, and then leave, unless you've given him a great severance package. But I would. That makes me tend to think that he's going to stay on staff in some capacity.
I agree. Yeah, I mean that does look like it. I mean, again, it'd be. Especially a kid like this, a grad transfer guy who's only got 1 year left in the, of eligibility left. You'd figure that he's going to, they're not going to send a guy who's on his way out to talk to him and convince him to come to Tallahassee. So, again, we're monitoring these things as soon as it becomes official. I don't want to say as soon as it becomes official because when it's official, that means that a day before that it happened. So, and that's when we're going to know because it's warchant.com. Use the promo code warchant30 to join the fam. And get dialed in to the best coverage of Florida State athletics, bar none. Deal with it. All right, Corey, you ready? You hear?
I am ready.
Do you hear that beautiful gallop in the distance?
So we're going to do it twice? We're going to have 2 galloping sound effects this week?
Yeah, man. I mean, the questions have to get dropped to us some way. They don't just magically appear.
Good point. Good point.
All right, let's get it started here. We begin with Knowles fan from South Florida. That's his handle. That's a long one. I think I remember him. He's an OG. He's been around for a while. I think he was part of the great Lee Weatherford War. He was on the right side of that one. He says, "Wake up!" As you can see, my username South Florida to the core, except for the orange and green and Coral Gables, of course. Born in Miami, moved to a small town just past the Dade-Broward County line called Hollywood when I was 12. Even though I have ties to the 305, I will always call Hollywood, Florida, my hometown until my last breath. He goes on to rattle off about 12 guys born in Hollywood. How about Mike Napoli, Norman Reedus?
Just give us the highlights. Give us like the 3 best.
Danny McManus.
Oh, there you know what? Danny McManus, for people that don't know, he was the quarterback on the original Dynasty team, the 87 team. Really good. Battled injury problems while he was at Florida State, but when he finally got healthy his last year, he was a heck of a quarterback. But anyway, he went to the same high school as my dad. I think West Broward or South Broward or something like that. So yeah, my dad is from Dania, which is right next to Hollywood, Florida.
Okay. All right, that's why you have such an affinity for
and
Danny
an
McManus.
All-time great CFL quarterback, old Danny McManus. Yeah. Like one of the best in the history of the league.
He also adds on a downer note that John Walsh lived in Hollywood. His son Adam was kidnapped from Hollywood Mall. That started America's Most Wanted.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
yeah, that is kind of a downer. We didn't have to bring that up.
Well, he mentioned it, and I thought it was
somewhat... sure.
All right,
much like there's a Netflix special coming out on Ted Bundy, and we all know that Ted Bundy was essentially caught, for the 3rd time because he kept escaping after the horrible things he did on Florida State's campus.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that as a young kid. I think that was my time. I was born when he was around, wasn't I?
You were alive when he was alive, but he was executed when I was like in the 7th grade. Okay. So you were probably in the 1st grade.
All right.
But he was executed in Florida.
Okay.
So anyway, let's get to the question.
Anywho, his question is: Florida State's 3 main sports are all at a crossroads of sorts, with the football team going through a rebuild, the baseball team's legendary coach having his last hurrah, and the basketball team whose current head guy is approaching 70. Isn't he already 70?
I think so. Yeah.
He would like to hear from each of us, in our honest opinion, where do you see each of the 3 programs 5 years from now? Just from your heart. Would like to hear what each of you think. Listen every day. Keep up the good work. Go Noles. Thank you, Noel fan from South Florida. Represent. You want to go first, Corey? You want me to go first? What do you want to talk? You want to go baseball?
So where we think they'll be is like a program, not necessarily who's coaching?
Yeah, 5 years from now.
Okay, I think Florida State baseball will be really good. I don't see that train slowing down. They've got to make upgrades to facilities, but they'll still be a player nationally. Basketball, I think football. I mean, I just think football will. I expect them to be good. I expect them to be Florida State good in 5 years for sure. I can't tell you for sure who the coach will be. I think it'll be Willie Taggart, but who knows for sure. But I think if it's Willie Taggart, they'll be in a good spot because obviously he's still around, so he's done some good things. As far basketball to me is the most intriguing one because Leonard can't coach forever. And what are they going to do when he packs it in? Would they think about Stan Jones, who's been an assistant for 20 years, and is kind of the X's and O's guy on that staff? And, they've already got good recruiters that are in place. Like, would they just want to promote from within? Or would they go and get a young hotshot, quote unquote, guy that's you don't know if he'll be able to keep the momentum going? Who knows? I think basketball and football I think baseball and football will be typically Florida State good. Basketball, to me, I really don't know. I don't know if they'll take a step back after Leonard leaves, or if he gets it in a place where somebody could come in and maybe even enhance what he's done. So I don't know. It's a hard question. It's a good question, but I don't know the answer to that. I'm most confident in baseball.
Yeah, someone's going to keep receipts of this show, so kind of got to tread carefully here. I mean, 5 years from now, Florida State, I think, will have at least made it back to Charlotte to play in the ACC championship game, at least one time.
Right. Clemson will take a year off from football.
I don't know about playoffs. Yeah, I mean, there's too many things in place, and I think ultimately if it works out with Willie, then obviously things are going to be going well if he's still here. And if it's not Willie, I think that the school will have made a real, I don't want to say concerted effort because the school's already dedicated and invested into football. But I think we'll see something really drastic in terms of the arms race, what the school needs to do in terms of hiring, the amount of money they're going to pay to their assistant coaches, which I know is top 10. They have assistant pool, but maybe just in terms of all the window dressing, all these ops guys and analyst guys and women and recruiting coordinators and all that sort of stuff. So it's hard to imagine that if Willie is still here in 5 years that the team's not doing well. And if he's not here, it's hard to imagine that they're not going to recycle the same concept and be like, all right, let's try to get another up-and-coming guy and let's try this all over again. I would imagine they're going to go full barrel on somebody that's pretty much can't miss, and if not, at least surround that person with really top flight coordinators out the gate and all the sort of support people that they'll need. You just think about how different things were, in 2012, 2013 compared to now, in terms of the amount of folks that people have in support positions and where we are now. It's just going to, I don't want to say exponentially grow because things are starting to slow down a little bit with the TV money, but I think football will be back. Basketball, that's interesting because you think about somewhere like Texas with Rick Barnes leaving, Shaka Smart was they got Shaka Smart, they're going to kill it. Like Shaka Smart hasn't really done anything that impressive at Texas, so if they do,
and look at what Rick Barnes is doing at Tennessee.
Yeah,
holy moly, that team is incredible.
Indeed, man. So yeah, I don't know, but I would imagine that the Florida State basketball coaching job is not going to be any more appealing ever than it will be the day that Leonard Hamilton walks away because he's got this thing in such a good position. It's in the best conference. You're in Florida. I know we're not the basketball school, but it's a good climate. It's a good place to raise a family and all that kind of stuff. So I feel good about that. Baseball, I'm just going to go ahead and say that we'll probably see the postseason streak snapped at some point. We took it for granted. I feel like we need to get punched in the mouth on baseball because I saw Mike Rooney, the guy for ESPNU and 2 that does some stuff for college baseball, that was like, in honor of Mike Martin starting his final year at Florida State, let's all remember his worst season ever, ... 40 wins and a trip to a regional. Yes, That was his worst season ever. I mean, we're going to miss the tournament, I'm sure, at some point, and it probably will happen in 5 years, I imagine. But I also think we'll be in Omaha at least one time as well. So I'm bullish.
I think you're a fatalist now, but this football season has changed you.
Yeah. I'm
Because
bullish,
we just thought
man.
it was all, once you don't make a bowl, then everything's on the table. Like the baseball team could have a losing record.
It's just it can't keep happening, Corey. It just can't. I mean,
Yeah, it's. The odds are it's got to slow down eventually. But you would have said that in probably 2008 too, or 2006, or whenever. Like it just keeps on keeping on. But yeah, I do think the basketball program will be in obviously much better shape than when Leonard took over, or when Steve Robinson took over, or when Pat Kennedy took over. Like the program will be in as good a shape as it's ever been for a new coach. And that, that's because of the groundwork that Leonard has done and he's been here forever. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think obviously the thing that most people care about is where the football team is in 5 years. And I still, it's a big caveat, but if they can get to 8 or 9 wins this year, I just think the floodgates open up, and I think you got yourself something that could really start rolling. And I think just getting to Charlotte will be. I don't think that's something that Florida State fans should take a lot of solace in. Like Florida State's not a program that's just happy to get to Charlotte once every 5 years. So I think they'll figure it out in the next half decade and be back to where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, where we are right now in 5 years, and where Clemson is, I'm not expecting to throw them off the mountaintop and then hold that position for 3 years running. I mean, just get back there one time in the next 5 years, I think, and you'll be on the right track. I don't think floodgates are going to open if they win 8 or 9 games this year, though. But that's good that you do. That's nice and positive. And good thing we're breaking this up.
I'm telling you.
Good thing we're breaking this up.
Because look, we know he's a really good recruiter. It's not just.
But do we really, Corey? Do we really?
Of course. What did he do at Florida State in a month?
Okay, what has he done at Florida State with a year in this cycle? He had a whole year in this cycle.
But that's because they looked like they looked.
Okay, well, I mean, then I don't know. I mean,
But that's what I'm saying. So if he can prove, like, I would get it if I'm a parent of a great athlete, and obviously I am, but he's just 10, he's not recruitable right now. But
right.
And I watched Florida State play this year, I'd be like, I don't know, man. And I'm sure a 17-year-old would think the same way. Like, man, I don't know. I really love this guy. I like the atmosphere he's created. He seems like a genuine person. I want to go play for him, but I don't want to look like that. But if he can get it to look like it, just what it was at South Florida in his 1 year at Oregon, the floodgates open up. And look what he did at Oregon before he left. They had a top 3 or 4 recruiting class before he left because they were winning some games. They didn't look like they'd never played football before. This season was such an aberration. I think it's hard to factor. It's hard to even gauge what he's going to do here. And he's still going to end up with a top 10 class most likely. But I think but that's top 10 looking as bad as Florida State has ever looked. Now, add 3 or 4 more wins. Look like you're on the uptick, like you've actually created something. And then I think you look again. I just think it's going to be. They're going to be turning kids away, Aslan. But anyway, we've spent this has been one question, and we've been talking for 8 minutes.
That's
we have to speed it up.
I was going to say we're 18 minutes into the show. I was going to say good thing we're breaking it up because we only did one question in. Right. I don't agree with you on the sentiment that you shared.
Well,
but
you're
I'm going to move on.
You're dumb. You know that.
I'm going to move on. I'm going to let you get the last word in, like you always do.
Thanks, buddy.
Next question from J.I.I. Knowles. Wake up! Jeremy from Miami, which is hometown of the great 5-star Ira Schofel. Besides coaching changes, do you think Willie will make any changes to how he runs the team, whether it's more afternoon practices or less music, something along those lines? Aslan, keep up the great work. Don't let the haters get you down. Corey, keep being a dude. Thank you for helping me start my day off every day. I really appreciate you guys. Go Knowles. Go Wake Up War Chant. Thanks, Jeremy. That's awesome.
That's
Thank you.
Nice, Jeremy. We appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah.
Good shout out to Ira, too. He is probably the most... He's probably the most accomplished person ever come out of Miami, Florida.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I wouldn't think we've talked about this before. I don't think he's changing the music. I'm sure he's probably not going to change the morning practices either, no matter how much you and I bellyache about it. Yeah. Unless Kendall Briles, maybe that was part of his contract negotiations, is like, dude, I'm not getting up at 6 o'clock to go coach football. Yeah. Let's hope it was, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think the way the practice, more importantly, the way the practice is structured, I think Kendall Briles will have an imprint on that. It will have a fingerprint on that. And it will look, in my opinion, at least on one side of the ball, it will look more like a Baylor practice or a Houston practice because it's his offense now. He's running the show, so I'm sure he has some suggestions on how he wants to run a practice.
Yeah. one can hope that maybe there's a little more, bad cop in Willie this time around, just because I'm sure he's trying to curry favor and soothe egos and get everybody rowing in the right direction and all that kind of good stuff, and any sort of cliche you want to throw in there. But now it's been a year. He's given you opportunities to show who you are and play at Florida State, and you rewarded him by going 5-7 last year. So he doesn't know anybody anything. I'm not sure he tried to act like he did last year either. But I would just imagine there has to be some sort of semblance of a different edge, a different tone and tenor around that team. And it's not changing who you are or doing a 180 and panicking. But, I mean, just whatever you did, a lot of things last year. And Willie, when we talked to him, the one-on-one, or not the one-on-one, but it was the guys from all of us at War Chant went in his office during spring and got, about an hour to sit down and talk to him. He mentioned about taking notes and when he was – doing like an NFL internship, and things really stick with him, it seems like. Hopefully he's remembered a lot of things that he didn't like, from 18 and how it led to X, Y, and Z and how he can change that. So I think a lot of it's going to be maybe just the way he interacts with these kids, and now he knows what they need, whether it's more tough love or if it's more, good guy, big brother, Uncle Willie sort of stuff. So I think he'll have a better sort of sense of that stuff moving forward. But yeah, and I do think practice it's going to have to look and feel different, because even if it's just the offensive side of things, that's going to permeate over to the defense as well. But yeah, I can't imagine that they're going to do the same drills, the same tempo, and that sort of stuff with Kendall Browse coming in. Just wouldn't make sense at all.
Let's just hope they keep that ball security drill.
Yes, that's timeless, indispensable, as indispensable as Irish O'Fell. Bimini bound. So the gut punch felt by the Duke loss was made way worse by the fact that I had celebrated the win, high-fiving, doing a little dance, and then I look at the TV and the possession call was under review. How about you guys? Yeah, I dreamt a little dream when Phil. Actually, even from where I was up in the concourse level, it did sort of seem like he hit his own teammate when he threw it, but the fact that they called it, Florida State ball, I'm like, look at this is awesome. They just beat Duke, number 1 Duke, took them down, and then it was like a 1-2 combination. I guess it gets overturned, and then they get the ball inbound and wide open, and then we know what happens. So yeah,
it actually he threw it off. I think it was Cabangeli. He threw it off Cabangeli right in front of me. Yeah. So I knew it had hit off Cabangeli, but then I haven't seen the replay of it, but. A buddy of mine texted me and was like, it looks kind of like it still went off the Duke kid's hand. And then people on the board were saying that it kind of looked like it went off a Duke player's hand after it hit Cabangeli. Either way, it's just, you got to come down with that rebound. You just have to. They didn't. And then obviously they didn't, after a 10-minute delay, they didn't guard the kid. By the way, did you see that kid didn't even play on Monday night?
He had illness. Thanks.
He had an illness. He couldn't get sick 48 hours before. And then they just lost their point guard for a long while. He did something to his shoulder. And I know he only had like 8 points in that game. That Duke point guard is legit, man. He is very good on defense. And he kind of runs the whole. He's really impressive. But, I mean, what else is new? Duke has a good point guard. Yeehaw. But, yeah, I think that was the worst thing is like, yeah, when they make that call, to get, all you got to do is inbound the ball, get fouled, and the game is over. Because even if you miss the front end of the 1-on-1, they're likely not going to go 85 feet in 2 seconds. So you've won the game if you pull down that rebound. And I think that was kind of lost because of how open the kid was after the shot. But the game was lost because you couldn't pull down a defensive rebound on a missed free throw. There wasn't like a crazy bounce. Like he didn't brick it where it went 7 feet backwards. It trickled off the front of the rim. You gotta pull it down, but what are you going to do?
Bimini Bound points out that the fish in his avatar were from a 2-day trip to the Dry Tortugas, a small uninhabited island west of Key West. That's the fishing limit of 6 guys for red snapper, mutton snapper, and red grouper. We also released a ton of fish as well. If to see the photo, subscribe using War Chant 30 to view, he says.
I thought Tortuga meant turtle.
What's the name of an island? Maybe it's in the shape of a turtle.
Oh, maybe there's a lot of turtles there and you're just not allowed to hunt them.
Or that.
Do you fish turtle or hunt turtle? Like, because they swim. What would you call if you hooked a turtle?
Well, if you hooked it, I would say that's fishing. But like if you caught one with your hands, I would be more.
But what if you caught one with your rod and reel? Is that fishing a turtle out? Is that a turtling?
I don't know. Maybe Bimini Bound can let us know next week.
Yeah, next week, buddy. Let us know what we call it, what the verb is to use when you pull a turtle into your boat and have to get it off your hook.
FSU guy 1989, with Florida State rising from 13 to 11 after beating Miami yet losing to Duke. Do you see it as us taking advantage of other teams losing or the fact that we looked good enough to move up? Also, we are currently ranked ahead of Kentucky. Who would win that game on a neutral court? I say Florida State, but I'm probably biased.
And obviously that was probably written before the Pitt game.
Correct.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was number one because they lost. Their two losses had been to the two number one teams in the country. You don't really want to punish a team for that. So, and they did look pretty good, even though they lost to Duke. But also, a lot of teams around them lost. Mm-hmm. Like there were like 11 teams from 10 to 25 that lost. So there weren't a lot of teams to replace them or move past them. So I think that's why they are where they are. And quite frankly, if they beat Boston College on Sunday, which is an if. They'll still probably be around 15th or 16th or something. The resume is still fine if they can beat Boston College. They're still 14-4. They're 2-3 coming home, and again, they're 3 of their 4 losses are to very, very good teams. But
yeah, Virginia,
golly, they got to shoot.
Virginia Tech last night. I mean, they shot the net off, so no shame in losing to them. I really haven't watched Kentucky play, but I'll go ahead. I'll take Florida State on a neutral court. I still believe in the team.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Kentucky beat the tar out of Georgia by 20 at Georgia. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't watched them play enough either. I assume Kentucky has more talent, but also it's younger talent. So, and quite frankly, man, if the kid, Reddish and Barrett played better than they ever have, really, at least in ACC play in those two in that game against Florida State. But you could tell, they were young. Duke's really, really talented, but they're young. There's nobody that's more talented than them, but they're certainly not destined to win a national championship. Like it's not a given because they're so young, and freshmen against seniors is a mismatch. And so Florida State would have a bit of an advantage, but Kentucky obviously would have more NBA talent, but that doesn't mean necessarily they're going to win a game. They'd be the better team for 40 minutes. Anyway, sorry, that was way too long.
See, Corey, like we were good, and then you had to add 2 more minutes.
I know, man. I always get something in my head, and I just can't let it go.
Always dropping dimes when a nickel will do, man. All right. Jax Jagnol says, wake up here in Tallahassee. What do you guys make of the staff Diaz is putting together down in Miami? Dan Enos was not an offensive coordinator yet at Bama, yet a lot of people are praising that hire. He also talks about Duke and then says that he likes the show a lot, loves listening to us in the mornings. Thank you, Jax Jagnol. Let's the basketball stuff we've got to. What do I think about the staff that Manny Diaz is putting together down there in Miami? Dan Enos, yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if Nick Saban wanted to keep him as his offensive coordinator, you better believe Nick Saban would have kept him as his offensive coordinator. Enos, I think, was just the quarterback's coach this past season. I don't know. I guess we're supposed to be scared of what Diaz is doing down there, but I'm not particularly losing sleep over it, at least not yet. But that's what I said about Dan Mullen,
yeah.
And look where we are right now. So what do I know?
And I mean, the biggest get that Manny Diaz got is himself. Like he's done a heck of a job with that defense, and so that's a big deal for Miami to be able to keep that defense intact and to keep that staff for the most part intact. Right? I think they all stayed, didn't they?
Defensively, yeah. I mean, the offense, they got rid of everybody. Everybody got
yeah. So, but the offense, yeah. I mean, the offense is going to be, it's been in new systems, it's going to be new coaches. We'll see. It's hard, man. It's just hard. Like again, I always go back to nobody was blown away by the Jeremy Pruitt hire.
Yep.
Nobody. He had been he had been in high school coach like 3 years or 4 years before. He had just been the DB's coach at Alabama. He was not Jimbo's first choice. And now the dude's a head coach in the SEC. It was a really good hire. But nobody was thinking it was a great hire at the time. And again, I don't give a ton of credence to an offensive coach coming from Alabama here recently. I mean, is he the secret to Tua? Or is Tua just awesome? Like I don't know. I don't know what kind of impact he'll make. We'll see. And I know, is Jalen Hurts going there? Do we know that yet?
No, it's not. I think Maryland and maybe Oklahoma. I think Maryland is still definitely in the mix. I don't think it's for certain yet. But, I mean, obviously with Dan Enos being his quarterback's coach, this past season. I think Enos Enos wasn't on staff last year. He was elsewhere. I think he was with Bielema in 16 or 17 rather. There's nothing for certain on Jalen Hurts going there.
I know he was down there on a visit. I saw that. I know he was down there on a visit earlier this week or this weekend. And again, I just don't know that. I know I thought Jalen Hurts would be good for Florida State, but only because their offensive line is a train wreck, and he's a mobile quarterback that could have really, really helped the running game. But man, I don't know that he's not a program changer. If I'm Florida State fans, I wouldn't be all that concerned about Jalen Hurts. I don't think he's just not a real difference maker at quarterback. He can run, he'll be able to run a little bit, but again, the whole stat about he's 26-2 and it's like, come on, man. He doesn't get, quarterback wins are a dumb stat anyway for the most part, but certainly at a place like Alabama.
His offensive line coach, Butch Barry, came from the NFL. He was an assistant O-line coach for the Bucs. But if you watch Tampa Bay play, it's not the best offensive line in the league. But still, that's always a nice little perk. And then his defensive coordinator came from Louisiana Tech. I think they actually crossed paths because Diaz went there to resurrect his career after he failed at Texas, and then he ended up did he go back to Mississippi State and then get to Miami? I forgot how he got back to Miami. I don't know if it was from Louisiana Tech straight to Miami. But I'm pretty sure he crossed paths with this guy, Blake Baker, who's his defensive coordinator. So, I'm not losing sleep over it. But if you're one of those guys, but you're in South Florida, I know you're all panicked or whatever. It'll be all right. Don't worry about it. All right, next question. Wes Duvall, no. All right, fellas, asking your opinion if you were Willie. This is not what you think will happen, but what would you do if you were the head coach? With one open coaching position and not being allowed to move coaches to admin roles, would you, A, hire Randy Clements as your second offensive line coach, B, hire Terrell Buckley as a cornerbacks and special teams coach, or C, fire Fry, hire Clements as your O-line coach, and then hire T-Buck as your cornerbacks and special teams coach? Ooh, that's good. That's a good one. Nothing against Greg Fry. I know the last one sounds better to me. 'Cause I don't know who you're going to split everything up with and who's going to get special teams duties if you only replace one guy. Like if you bring in Randy Clements and you keep Greg Fry there, what are you going to split? Like, is Raymond Woody and Mark Snyder going to split doing special teams? I don't like putting anything more on their plates because they're going to have their work cut out for them. Nothing against Greg. It would just be to bring in Clements and you get T-Buck. I'll take that. Yeah.
Sure. I think we both have an affinity for T-Buck. He's obviously he's part of the Wake Up War Chant family now. Because of that interview. He's basically like another co-host. Mm-hmm. So we want to get him back into Tallahassee, obviously. I don't know that Greg Fry deserves to be fired. So I would maybe have an issue with that. I also don't know what that does if you're trying to hire coaches in the future. If you just axe a guy after 1 year when he was given a bunch of rotten fruit to work with, and he's like, you didn't make a good meal out of it, so you're going to blame him for it. I don't know. Maybe there's a way. I would try to figure out a way where I could hire, if those are my only options, if I could hire T-Buck next year.
Okay.
But I guess out of those options, that's probably the most appealing.
Yeah, again, to me, it's nothing personal against Greg, and I think, like you said, what he inherited, what he had to work with is obviously subpar. But I don't like the idea of that defense staying the way it is and not getting another coach to help out on that side of the ball, and then you're going to add more workload already to probably a Raymond Woody and a Mark Snyder, because I doubt Odell is going to be the guy that's going to have to pick up slack on special teams. It would most likely be somebody like Raymond Woody, and I don't even know how much experience he has running that. Same thing with Mark Snyder. I don't know if Mark Snyder agreed to come down here so he could help out with special teams either. So that would be the reason I would go in that direction, not because I'd want to get rid of Greg Fry or think that he's deserving of not getting another shot at this thing. So
that's a good question. Good question. Thought-provoking, and we like those.
Yeah. Next one, Doc Knoll, 88. I'm not saying it's been a while since you guys answered a voicemail, but my last question was about FSU becoming co-ed. Very clever.
What?
Very clever. Yeah. We haven't gone to the phone lines in a while.
Oh,
No one's been bringing the heat, Doc Knoll. I mean, you got to bring. I told you guys, if we're going to do the questions, you got to bring heat. I can't run a 57-second question of meandering.
yeah, that's a funny question. I mean, that's a funny comment though.
He's from parts unknown. Doesn't tell us where he's from, so we're under no obligation to answer his question, Corey. That's a new rule around here. If you don't tell us where you're from or give us some famous people from your hometown, we're not obligated to answer the question. So let's see what it is. He asks, do you think Jimbo and Damian Craig have broached the subject of the stolen signals from the national championship game? If so, how do you think that went down?
Yes, I do think that's talked about. I think there's probably a part of Jimbo that was, a little tip of the cap. Like, well, that's a competitive thing to do, and I want competitors, and blah blah blah. Yes, I definitely assume that has been talked about at some point over some, I don't know, whatever Jimbo drinks, moonshine. Probably had a couple sips of moonshine, and then talked about that time you really tried to screw us in Pasadena. But again, I don't even blame him. Like, Jimbo, come on, man, you're really detail oriented. Your sign shouldn't be that easy to steal.
Right.
But they got the towel boys out and everything was good again.
Yeah, I bet like whenever they were on the road, like Damian Craig probably has to get the bedroom that's got the 2 beds. Like, if they check into the hotel, like, oh, we don't have enough king beds, Damian gets stuck with the 2 twin beds because, Jimbo's like,
yeah, or he's got to share a room with a GA or something.
Yeah. And Jimbo
I just can't imagine it would be incongruous, if that's the right word, to me, for Jimbo to be really been out of shape about that. As competitive as Jimbo is, when you're looking for any little help you can get, I can't imagine he was too upset about a guy on the other sideline knowing the plays and telling them that the play. I mean, it'd be weird if he didn't.
Here's the question, Corey. Here's the real question. Would Damian Craig be working for Jimbo Fisher had Auburn won that game? Because it's easy to let it slide and tip your cap when you won, but if we didn't win,
maybe, I still think so, but I mean that might make it a little easier for Jimbo to stomach that they won the game anyway. But again, I just can't imagine Jimbo having too big a problem with it because I think Jimbo would want him doing that for him. Right. Like, hey man, if you know the side when we play LSU. If you recognize what they're doing and if you've decoded their signals, you better tell me and not have some weird loyalty to a place you used to work. You better tell because we're trying to win games. So I don't know that he'd have he had a real issue with it. Yeah. Or maybe he told him he dog cussed him for 10 minutes and then hired him.
Conway T4811. Hey guys, I want to take it back old school for a little bit. What do guys know or what have you heard about how Bowden ran the football program, whether player relations, atmosphere, etc. at Florida State? When I imagine it, I imagine that Dabo is probably similar to Bobby in several regards. Another question I have, yet to see the Bowden Dynasty DVD. My wife says she's getting it for me soon, so I'm looking forward to that, but have either of you seen it? Your thoughts? I have not seen it. Have you seen it? I have not, no.
I have. It's really good. I think I wrote a column on it when I was at the Democrat a couple of years ago after I watched it. It is good. A Florida State fan. I don't know where they're available. Maybe there's like where they're not. Google it. I was going to say I'm sure there's a website you go to, but they're not sponsoring us, so I don't need to give that away on the air. But I'm sure there's a way you could go get it. But it is, if you're a Florida State fan, it really is good. And it's interesting. It goes. I know a lot about Bobby Bowden. I've been following Florida State since I was 5 years old. But there was still a lot of stuff in there that I didn't know. And there's a lot of great, great archival footage of him. Because, again, I think what's lost with Bowden, and the Dabo comparison is a good one, but Dabo's so much younger than Bowden was when Florida State hit its dynasty. Bowden was in his 60s. Dabo's, I think, still in his 40s. Yeah. And he acts like he's in his teens. So there's a real difference in the way they interact with their players. But when you look at Bowden – and like the archival footage, even when he was at West Virginia, and then when he comes to Florida State, the late 70s or early 80s, man, he was obviously just a ball of personality and really funny and really innovative offensively. It just would really it really does make you appreciate what he did. It's a really good, it's a really well done documentary if you're a Florida State fan for sure. And yeah, I think that's the biggest difference to me with Dabo And Bobby, obviously, faith is a big part in both their lives. They're both, I guess you would say players, coaches. I just think the difference I don't think Bowden in the 90s, I don't think those players, certainly by the end, but I don't even think in the 90s, they felt all that connected to Bobby Bowden. He was like a CEO. He wasn't their friend. He wasn't dancing with them in the locker rooms. I don't know how connected they felt to him as opposed to Dabo with the Clemson kids. And I think a lot of that might just be age. Again, a 62-year-old trying to connect with a 19-year-old can be really hard. But it obviously worked for Bowden. Good grief. It was one of the best runs of all time. I just think that's probably the biggest difference between the two.
Yeah, I only covered him for one season, like 2005, and I think the spring of 2006. So obviously, not in his prime. A lot of tower watching. But those practices were spirited, man. There was a lot of board drills. Like, it wasn't Knoll drill. It wasn't Oklahoma sort of. Well, actually, yeah, it was kind of Oklahoma stuff. But I mean, yeah, he let Mickey have it, man. He let them do what they wanted out there, and they were always kind of physical, spirited practices. I think to your point, I think like Bobby was much more fatherly, friendly to the guys off the field. I think when he was on the field with them, like there wasn't a lot of boo-boo, feel bad for the kids. It was he was like you said, he was 60 when they were in the midst of the dynasty and stuff. So he came from a different era where there wasn't participation trophies and mandatory water breaks and that sort of stuff. So those practices were a little more hellacious, I think.
I can tell you've seen Remember the Titans recently.
Yeah, there you go. Damn right. Oh,
water? You don't get water?
Speaking of, I figured out what the other thing was I didn't like about the movie.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't like about the fact that Sunshine had this great arm and then was relegated to running the wishbone. But then again, it was the 70s. You can't fault them. There wasn't a lot of wide open offenses. But then the end of the movie, spoiler alert, by the way, folks. Spoiler alert, turn it down for 30 seconds. I'm not going to talk about this for more than 30 seconds. Maybe.
But it's an 18-year-old movie.
Okay,
there's no such thing as a spoiler alert.
All right. Well, at the end of it, they're at a funeral for somebody. I'll keep it somewhat vague. And they start singing, na, 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 hey, 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 goodbye. At a funeral. If I'm dead and my friends are singing, na, 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 hey, hey, goodbye at my funeral, man, I'm coming back. I'm going to just like.
I want my friends to sing "Another One Bites the Dust." Doom, 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 and everybody gets up and starts pelvic thrusting.
Okay.
That's something. By the way, I'm serious about this. So when this happens, it could be 12 years from now. It could be 30 years from now. I want you to go to the funeral, and whoever's running it, whether it's Stephanie, Brady, whoever might be in charge of my funeral, they're going to give you a lot of grief and say, there's no way he wants us to play Another One Bites the Dust by Queen, and we're all supposed to stand up and thrust our pelvises. And you're going to say, yeah, and I have it on tape. I have it on iTunes. And play this for them. People, I'm serious. That's what I want at my funeral. Another One Bites the Dust with pelvic thrusts. Corey Clark speaking to you from the grave. Aslan's being truthful. That's what I want. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
MX Hudso, shout out from the West. Utah transplant from Florida 23 years ago. Really appreciate the podcast. Helps those of us that are far away feel closer to Tallahassee. That's what we try to do, man. We try to bring you back. In your opinion, do you think Willie Taggart will give Briles the sole discretion of choosing the starting quarterback this coming season? Will Taggart have some issue with wanting to protect his quarterback choice from 2018 and perhaps urge Briles to start Francois? He also asked if we've heard anything about the potential waiver of Travis Jordan. Jordan Travis. He said Travis Jordan, but Jordan Travis getting a waiver. We know we haven't. Is he a real threat to Blackman in 2020? I don't really know. And the incoming freshman will be Legendre or Plumlee. Find out later tonight on the warchant.com recruiting chat. That'll be streaming live and free of charge on YouTube. For the answer to that, Michael Langston will give us the lowdown on that. Listen, man, Willie's going to give Briles a lot of leeway and latitude to do stuff, but, man, he's going to be involved in helping pick the quarterback. I can't imagine him just being like, yeah, you pick it out, figure it out, let me know. I'll go tell the reporters. But I don't think he's going to want to protect what he did last year and be like, hey, maybe you should give this Francois guy a lot of, give him a lot of thought and consideration because That
the
guy
fans
that does
love
the
him.
podcast is going to wonder why the hell I started him last year if James Blackman comes out here and starts throwing lasers.
Yeah, I think I mean, obviously Willie's going to have a say, but I also think that we have to assume they're both going to see the same thing, right? Like that I can't imagine that Willie will think one way and Bryles will think another way. I think it'll be apparent to both of them who the quarterback should be.
Yeah, that's a good point. But then
But
again,
if they don't, then I mean, I guess Willie gets final say. I mean, that would be interesting though, because it is Bryles' offense, and he's the one that knows who's better to run that offense. But I do think they'll both end up agreeing on it.
Wouldn't that be crazy though if there was, like Bryles just like, man, I just think this Blackman kid just wired better to do stuff, and then like maybe DeAndre actually outperforms him. I don't know. It's one of those things where I never agreed with the assertion that DeAndre looked clearly better than James during practices and the lead up to being announced the starter. At best, it was like a stalemate. Maybe I don't know like what Francois did that looked better than Blackman. What I do know is that first practice of the spring that was completely open to the media. There was one segment where they were doing like the screen game, the perimeter passing sort of stuff. And I think Blackman dirtballed like 3 passes or 2 passes in a row, and everyone was like, "Aslan, your boy looked pretty rough there." And from there, they go into downfield stuff, and James looked just as sharp, if not better, than DeAndre. And then DeAndre was obviously limited in spring, but it was like the unwritten stuff started coming out. Like the sources say that DeAndre's outperforming James. Like I never saw anything that made me think, boom, for sure, like that's got to be him. Now at the same token, it wasn't like, oh, look at one spinning it right now. Oh, there's no way it's not going to be him. I just felt like with everything that had been happening, Francois' health, wanting to have somebody that had the intangible, strong leadership qualities, that James Blackman, just go ahead and let him learn and get this thing rolling. But that never was the case, and then everyone starts saying, well, obviously, Francois was better. I never thought that, but that was then.
Yeah, but also we weren't at practice.
But I'm saying from what I saw, I don't.
Oh,
but
right.
The thing is,
but we don't. That's the thing is like, before I started doing this job, I always thought that like maybe it even goes back to Xavier Lee. Like, man, why isn't he playing? He's got a crazy arm. He can move. People bounce off him. But if you don't get it, you don't get it. Like if you can't see it, you can't. And that's the one thing. Really, probably the thing I learned most from being around Jimbo for 8 to 10 years, whatever it was, is there's so much more to quarterback play than just if you can spin it or even how strong your arm is. I mean, Drew Brees doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, but holy moly, everything just makes sense to him. And if you can't, so we don't know, no matter how they throw the ball in drills, whether you're throwing dirt balls or you're throwing perfect spirals, if you get in the 11-on-11 and just keep throwing it to linebackers or you don't see the guy that's open, then it doesn't matter how strong an arm you have. So that's the one thing I've kind of learned just doing this job for a long time is there's so much that goes into quarterback play besides just the tangibles of height, weight, arm, even accuracy. It's get rid of the ball quick. It's getting it to the right guy. It's seeing the defense. It's all that stuff. And we don't know who saw that better. Now, the course of the season, one guy, well, look, it is what it is. One guy wasn't great. It's hard to know if James Blackman would have been any better against those teams. But the best game a quarterback played all year for Florida State was the one that James Blackman played.
And the one where the guy who's no longer here was calling the plays. I did watch that game. Blackman threw that pick, and that was a backbreaker. Like the first half, I don't know if it was 21 or 28-7, or it was starting to get away from them. Maybe it was 14-0. And like the defensive lineman dropped back in zone coverage. It was really well disguised. I mean, he took 2 steps forward like he was going to rush the passer, and then he stopped and backpedaled. And Blackman didn't see him. I think it was on a 3rd down. He had DJ Matthews open for a first down, but he threw it right to the NC State guy. That was a backbreaker. And Jarquez Patrick fumbled the ball early in that game, and that was a bit of a bummer too. But second half, he came out and looked well, so I don't know how much of it was because the game was out of hand. But it's crazy when you think about the fact that kid threw for like 421 yards and I think 4 touchdowns. And then it was just like, yeah, thanks for your service, but just, back to the bench. That's just bizarre.
Yeah,
I can't.
it was all weird. It was all weird.
Dan Finn, 1989. Dan from Melbourne and the Space Coast, where we claim Jim Morrison, the ageless Kelly Slater, and Kate Upton. Really?
Oh, well, that's a good trio.
Kelly Slater, really? Like the surfer? He's from the Florida coast.
Well, that's surprising, right? Yeah. He's got to be the best Florida surfer in history.
Yeah. They'll probably release it before this gets answered. That's happening later today. But what's the deal with the ACC football scheduling? Every other Power 5 has had their 2019 slate out for a while, and the Big Ten is a couple years out ahead. Hard to plan in advance when we don't have dates for the matchups. Great show, guys.
Is that today? It's coming out later today?
Yes.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. Yeah. There you go. That's something I can write about, finally. There we go.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know why. It could be maybe that, we just, we're
They're distracted by the orange ball. It's the ACC, man.
Yeah.
They'll get to it when they get to it.
Yeah. What have they announced? Yeah, 2 p.m. 2 p.m. today.
Oh, baby.
It's coming down.
Everybody get around your computers at 2 p.m. You're going to see where the Knowles are playing. And, well, I guess we know who they're playing, right? We just don't know the
dates.
The dates, yeah. All right. That's fine.
The rotational from the Coastal is going to be Virginia at Charlottesville.
That'll be fun. That'll be a good trip. It's I hope it's in September. That's a really pretty campus, but I don't think I want to be there in November.
Yeah. All right. So, that's what he asked. I don't know why. It's just the ACC being the ACC.
How long have we been going now? What are we at time-wise?
I think we're at 51 minutes. We literally have – okay, this is it. That's it. Perfect.
Okay.
That's it. We're done. That was the question. That's the last one.
Oh, all right. Well, there you go. So, tomorrow when you hear us, because we split this bad boy up, you're going to hear the horses galloping, and then we'll be able to talk about the schedule a little bit, and we'll go game by game and predict the season. It really doesn't matter to me. I feel like they're going 10-2, no matter how you stack these games. I don't see them losing more than twice. Can't even envision it, really. By the way, just before we go, wanted to give a quick shout out to Brady Clark. I'm very tongue in cheek when I talk about his athletic prowess. He's a decent athlete, but he's not a superstar. But my man did hit a game-winning 18-footer in his basketball game last night. In overtime with 6 seconds left, he hit an 18-footer to give his team the win.
Contested, or was he open?
No, they were in a stack formation. The ball out of bounds.
Yeah.
And then he shot to the three-point line, not all the way there, but close to it. Got the ball, just stepped into it, nice release, and buried it.
Nice, dude.
And the beauty of that kid, I don't know where he gets it, because I was always kind of afraid to shoot, but he does not care. I think he was probably 1 for 10 before he took that shot. And now they were good shots that trickled out, but he doesn't care, man. He always assumes the next shot's going in.
Shoot or shoot, Corey. Shoot or shoot, man. I don't know why I got to bring up the stats, by the way. But I mean, this could be the moment that things start clicking and changing his trajectory, man. I mean, a game winner's a big deal.
I told him when I put him to bed, I was like, man, that was a cool moment for you, man. You're going to remember that for the rest of your life.
Heck yeah. All right, well, on that note, let's step aside.
That's a big moment.
We'll go live lives. You do the same. Keep working. Stimulate our economy. We appreciate it. And we will indeed talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks for listening. He's Corey Amazon. It's been Wake Up War Chant.
WarChant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. WarChant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WarChant30. That's WarChant30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WarChant30. WarChant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.